Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood nights. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying,
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy, the show that talks 100% LA Galaxy soccer. We're glad you could join us. Now it's time to sit back and relax as your hosts navigate through the twisting, turning, but never boring world of the five-time MLS Cup champion, LA Galaxy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, coming to you on a Thursday, September 29th. The LA Galaxy getting ready to host the Real Salt Lake coming in on Saturday night. This is the big one. It's the biggest one, actually. And if the LA Galaxy win, they are absolutely into the playoffs. If they draw, it's not quite, but we could be some scoreboard watching on Sunday, that type of thing. So we're going to talk a whole bunch about that, how we get there. We're going to talk about Chicharito because he made some news. We're going to talk about the Rose Bowl because that was in the news for the last time that we talked, even though I think we've known about it as a show. We've known about it for at least a week and a half. Something like that. So we want to talk about that, and then obviously get you ready for RSL coming up this weekend. So a lot of stuff to get to, a lot of things to talk about. To help me do all that, he's back. It's the Hammer. Eric, the Portuguese Hammer Vieria. How's it going, Eric?
It's going well. I'm not calling from a tow truck this time, so this is a grand success.
Yeah, a better start. I was going to say,
yeah.
A much better start
from
for
the comfort of home. The Galaxy are on a winning streak. I was looking at my notes because I hadn't typed in my notes for about a month. We were in some dark times. From my last notes about a month ago, so this is good. We're definitely on the upswing. So a lot closer to the playoffs.
Your notes were nothing but dashboard confessional lyrics last time.
It was depressing.
Yeah, it can certainly be that way. I can understand that for sure. So, but again, they get a 3-2 win over San Jose. I always have the host on Thursday who didn't get to talk about it on Monday if there wasn't a game midweek. I always want them to sort of chime in and talk about what you saw. So, I mean, are you just taking this whole on a positivity rainbow thing? It's like it doesn't matter what happened, what the final score was. They played well during it. They dominated for large portions of it. Are you on that, or are you the 3-2 lead thing is going to come back to bite them in the playoffs? But at least you're talking about the playoffs.
That part. So I'm with you. What I saw was a dominant performance with shaky moments, which is par for the course for the LA Galaxy. It's exactly what they have been all season long. I thought they, did really well to put away their chances. Some great, I wouldn't, not great goals from that first Chicharito goal. Was a little bit sloppy, but the Brugman one was a banger.
Do you think it was sloppy, or did he do it on purpose? Because he megged somebody.
Oh, he did well to set it up. It was the final touch that wasn't like a clean, especially compared to like a Gaston Brugman hit. In that regard, it was sloppy, but he earned it. He absolutely put himself in the right position. Got the foot on it. How many times have we seen players not be able to get past a defender or kick it right into a defender's leg? So all credit to him. That's not a diss on him for that goal. He 100% earned that goal. And then the clown celebration. It was. I really liked what I saw from the LA Galaxy there. But we always talk about why it's important to put away those chances, especially to get that third goal. Because a few bad bounces and you're left with a lot of regret. This is talking from someone who's just watched Portugal, get bounced from a possible Nations League playoff when you are trying to go for a tie, or you're not necessarily pressing forward. You don't put away your chances. You end up with a lot of regret. And how we've seen that happen a lot this season, where the Galaxy don't live up to their XG or at least match it. And, they end up paying for it later on. Here, they exceeded their XG. They actually had a lower XG than San Jose.
Right.
But I think a lot of that happened with just the way the chances panned out.
The
penalty was huge.
Yes.
And then, the Derek Williams, excellent finish that he had at the end there. So to me, I wasn't as upset with letting the goals in because this is what we've seen the Galaxy get shaky at the end. I thought they did well enough by putting away their chances and looking dominant that I walked away happy with that performance. It was frustrating to watch them give up those 2 goals, but when they put away their chances, you can't get mad because they did their job. Right. So I thought that was a successful business trip. And, you've been talking about it. The Panda's been talking about it, the infamous game in hand. This was the one where the ground needed to be made up, and we walk away in 5th place when, we were out of the playoffs after the Vancouver loss. We were ready to pack it up and things were over. But now we're in 5th place, possibility of 3rd place. 4th or 5th looking like it's going to be most likely, but really, really strong chance to get in the playoffs. And that's really all you wanted. You wanted to see this team react, and they have. That was a great performance in the first half and for most of the game, and it was just some nervy moments, which isn't different than we've seen, and that is something that may and will likely come back to bite them. But
maybe not
against good competition. That's going to sting, but at the same time, this is the Galaxy team that we've seen all year. So it wasn't that shocking. It wasn't that I didn't walk away thinking, man, that was a huge letdown. I was like, no, that's kind of what I expect from this team is to, score a few goals and then let in a few goals. And then hopefully we just end up with more at the end of the game. So I think that's how it works, right? You want to end up with more goals than the other team. Yeah, I don't know the math algorithm for that, but I think that's good. That's a good thing.
That's always a plus. John gave us a $5 super chat talking about Chicha and contract. We'll get to that, John. I promise. I don't want to. I'm not Kevin Baxter telling you all the good things up front here. I'm going to draw this out a little bit. All right, the best that I can in order to keep you interested. But yes,
I do want to give a shout out to John. He was first in the chat, first comment. Yes. So he helped us reach our 1 comment threshold. So we're renewing him for our next show. So you're back in.
The best Halloween costume so far, I'm going as Chicha's contract renewal requirements. I'm basically naked. That's going to be
11 items. That's that could be pretty covered up. There's
a lot of socks. Yeah. All right. That's
depending on the items, I guess.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. If we look at the chart that we've been keeping track of here at Corner of the Galaxy for a little while, and we took a look at it on Monday again, Galaxy targeting 48 points. There's a good chance they surpass that, which would be nice. They're 2 points away from that with 46 right now, so they need at least 2 points. We're sort of talking, by the way, 2 draws necessarily doesn't do it. You need help and to do other things, so the 48 isn't a perfect number anymore. A perfect number is 3 more points against RSL. That really does it for you if you're playing the home game. The 3 points controls your own destiny. You lock up a spot, you're in, and it's against RSL, who you keep from advancing on you whenever this happens. So that's why the draw is good, because technically it doesn't allow RSL to catch up to you, right? Because you get a point and they get a point, that type of thing. But the draw doesn't necessarily separate you, I think, from Portland, and then you'll be watching the Sunday game where Portland is hosting LAFC. We'll look at that on the schedule here in a little bit, so that way we can sort of, again, keep our eyes in the places that you sort of need to be this week and keeping an eye. So, that's where we sit here. 2 games left. RSL at home, Houston away. We have some fun stats on those on some of that as well. So we're going to get to that. I wanted to look at the bracket again, just so we understand what the Galaxy are currently trying to do, right? So 5th in the West, 4th in the West, right? Those are sort of the prime targets right now. I think if you looked at 538, it's like 27 and 29% basically to get into 5th or 4th. And 4th was 4th the higher one?
4th was higher. 29% was actually the higher chance, depending on how things shake out. So it's kind of interesting, because I did say, it's shaky, and when you play against good competition, things will come back to bite you. But when you look at it's a little bit of a different bracket. MLS has on their website, if the playoffs started, where would they land? And you look at it and it's like, well, if they took on Austin, I feel pretty comfortable against Austin. FC Dallas, Dallas beat us this year, but I don't know that I'm that scared of them. And you will go down the list. Well, Nashville, we've walked away with results versus Nashville, and you go down the list. And you're like, well, maybe they can beat these teams. And so that's the frustrating thing, is you think, okay, maybe they're all the way out of it, and then you see who they could possibly get matched up against, and you think, well, I'm not totally scared to go into the playoffs, especially with the hot streak that they're riding. So it's kind of interesting how it's going to pan out, where it looks likely they're going to get in that 4 or 5 spot. And then, of course, who's waiting at the end of that, LAFC, who's going to be, depending on where they land with their shield, that they, could if they're looking to get another jersey patch, or if they're more focused on other things, since they've been on a little downward streak here. But again, I'm not afraid to play them. We've taken stolen their lunch money every once in a while. So it's kind of interesting how it's played out. That chart that you had with the target number, that was 12 games ago.
Yeah,
we projected 48, and 48 is the target number. I think that's if it's dead on. 2 draws would likely get them there. There'd have to be some things really go sideways. But the kicker is RSL plays Portland, which they're going to take away points from each other,
or they don't. And they each get 1.
Exactly.
Right? It's like that doesn't
Either way,
help them either.
It's that minimum points thing, and then Minnesota plays Vancouver, so that's going to be something that's involved, and then LA playing RSL. So these teams, like if you look at if everyone wins out hypothetically, where it can shake out, the Galaxy could be in trouble, but it's not going to work where everyone wins out because some of these teams have to play each other, and they're teams of consequence that have to play each other, and that's where it gets kind of funky. I don't know if we want to get into like specific scenarios because I crunched some numbers on that, or is that for later on?
We can if you want. I was trying to think. Let's see. I'm trying to think how everything sort of lays out. If you want to, go for it.
I think some of what I was looking at is what's the worst case scenario? Because of course that's where my brain goes as a Galaxy fan. So if they lost against RSL, if they got 1 point and then they drew at Houston, that'd be like, the world is burning, everything's going wrong. Because if Portland wins their game, even if regardless of the result versus RSL, then the Galaxy's in trouble. They'd be sitting on the 8th spot outside of everyone else. But if they happen to draw against RSL, they could see themselves sitting at the end. But if they just draw at Houston, they don't need to get 3 points. So it can make things interesting depending on what's going to happen. So it all comes down to that Houston game. Do we go in needing 3 points? Do we go in and needing a draw, or do we not need any points at all? So that's basically what it's going to come down to. But that RSL Portland game on decision day is going to be huge because it's depending on the result outside of just winning. Obviously, they just win. They get those 3 points. They hold the tiebreaker. Seattle, after their game in hand, is not going to be able to pass them. Vancouver is not going to be able to pass them, best case scenario. And then if they beat RSL, then RSL is not going to be able to pass them. They're going to be tied on points. So that's your 3 teams, 8 through 9. And if you get a win, then they're never going to be able to catch you. But there are scenarios where you can lose and then still get a result against Houston and get in. You can get 2 draws and then it can still work.
Don't count on Houston. I mean, and listen, I know that there's people in here who clearly haven't podcasted and don't have to fill 60 minutes and they're like, just win. Well, that would be fun if we just said that. But there are scenarios, and it's important to understand everything because I want to be very, very clear because I like making so many people angry with this. This weekend's not a must-win game. It would be really, 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 really nice to win the game. That's what it is.
It kind of goes back to that Vancouver game that was a bit of a disaster. It's if this team is worth their salt, if they're any good, then they should win this game. If pressure on the line at home to clinch a playoff spot, if this team is the more positive side of the coin, then they should be able to win it. But they don't have to. And you're right. That's exactly why I bring up these scenarios, because I know it drives some people crazy because they're like, why are you telling me this? Just win, and then we're good to go. But people also want to know, well, what happens if we don't win? And I just want to lay that out. There are scenarios where you can lose to RSL, get a good result in Houston. If you can draw at RSL and then, becomes less valuable in Houston, but you still need to, you can't lose all the way out. So there's still some scenarios. Not all hope is gone. And that's what we're front loading you with, is that, it's not a must win. And that's basically, we took the long way to get there to tell you that.
Yeah, we did. By the way, shout out to Scott, who gave us a $20 super chat. Really appreciate that, Scott. Thank you very much. Scott says, keep up the great work. I hope we make the playoffs and make a deep run. I mean, that's the goal here. And let me tell you how things have shifted, Mr. Eric Vieira. Let me tell you in the wide world of sports how things have shifted. One, let's talk about this stat. All right. Kevin Acevedo, who does PR for the LA Galaxy, put this in their last 9 matches playing, dating back to August 13th. The LA Galaxy hold a 4-1-4 record. During that span, the Galaxy's 4-1-4 record, 16 points, ranks as the best in the Western Conference and ranks 3rd in MLS behind only Philadelphia and Montreal. And both of them had 6-1-1 records for 19 points. Okay. I love Kevin, and Kevin and I talked about this stat today. And then I went to look up and sort of see, well, how far does that extend, and why is 9 matches the one and not 10 matches? Is because it doesn't work if you do 10 matches, and it doesn't work if you do 8 matches, right?
Yeah.
It's one of those where like you start breaking it down, and it's like, oh, you can make this look. It's like I can tell you that RSL has only won 3 times in their last 16 games. Now, why did I pick that? Because if I go 17 games, they've won another one. They've won 4, right?
I could also say that, in the last one game, the LA Galaxy is tied for the most points in MLS. So
that's right. But this is still the fact that you can even find this in anything does show
that's
that the
large
Galaxy
sample
does something.
size. Yeah,
Yes.
that's a large sample size. It's
not
the one game like my joke.
No, but it is 9 matches. That is something. And Eric, I think you and I were talking beforehand. You were talking about Riqui Puig and the difference between Riqui and without Riqui, right?
Yeah, those are the stats that I ran. Is since Riqui showed up, the Galaxy are 3-1-4, and they have 13 points. So 3 wins, 1 loss, and then 4 draws. And so that's 8 games, 13 points. I looked at the 8 games before Riqui showed up, which was a little bit of a downward slide, and they're 3-5-0. So they had 3 wins, 5 losses, and then no draws. So when you say, well, they have the same amount of wins, but I think the difference there is maybe Riqui didn't bring more wins, but he brought an unwillingness to lose. And I think in that Seattle game, when he showed up, I talked about, a winning mentality in the Galaxy, not having necessarily winners on their team and not knowing how to win, not knowing how to close games out. I think Riqui brings that no, we're not going to lose. We're going to keep fighting. We're going to keep clawing. If we lose the ball, we're going after it. If we allow a goal, we're going to get back into it. I think that's what he brings to this team. Maybe it's not showing itself in win total, because the win total with him and the 8 games before is exactly the same, but the draws show the difference because it's showing this team is not going to lose, with a few exceptions. It's that unwillingness to lose, which I think I'm going to say it. This is what your championships teams have, is that, okay, we're not going to lose this game. We're going to throw it all out there. We're going to throw the kitchen sink, and we are not losing today. And that's the mentality that Riqui has, and that's infectious to the team. You could see since his arrival the influence that he's had on the field and with the players around him and how they're responding to him on the field and then off the field. You just see when you see those videos from training and you see the interactions, they're just, he brought that spark, that vibrancy, that Disney Channel magic. He brought that, and it's really rearing its head right now. And whether you look at the last 8 games, last 9 games, last 10 games, you see the difference that Riqui is a huge part of that.
Yeah. And you see that I would also put Brugman in there as well. I mean, there's going to be the MLS awards came out, or at least the nominations for it, and the newcomer of the year, the LA Galaxy nominated Riqui Puig, duh,
of course,
and Gaston Brugman, duh, yeah. Right. And by the way, it could be either of those guys. Here is the magic of the landscape changing, Mr. Vieira. I was driving up to the wonderful city of Vernon today to do some work, and as I'm driving up there and listening to Sirius, I'm having a good time. By the way, professional podcast note: Eric muted his mic before he took a sip, and then took a sip. Just
and then
Kevin,
unmuted
just in case.
To laugh.
Yeah,
For
exactly.
the ambiance.
See, look at that. It's amazing what you can do. Yeah. Anyway, I was listening to Sirius XM on the way up. Jason Davis was talking, and they were talking about Austin. And they had somebody from the Striker on talking about Austin, and they were going over the whole thing. And there's like, well, you're in second, you can't really push for the supporter shield and the whole deal. And they're like, is there somebody that you wouldn't want to face in the playoffs whenever it goes? And I'm like, they're going to say the LA Galaxy, right? Because they haven't beat the LA Galaxy. And he does. He says, he goes, I don't think anybody, this wasn't just an Austin thing. I don't think anybody wants to play the LA Galaxy right now. Imagine somebody saying that about this team 14 games ago, right? Where it's like, I don't think anybody wants to play. No. The bottom line is everybody would be like, I'll play the Galaxy. They're not scary. Riqui Puig has added something that has now made the LA Galaxy scary. And they specifically called him out, basically saying Austin didn't beat LA in either of the 2 games. In fact, LA won them both, right? And
pre-Riqui.
And that was pre-Riqui, and they're like, and they haven't seen Riqui yet, and they may not have a good answer for Riqui Puig. Well, guess what? So far, nobody's had a good answer for Riqui Puig, and they've tried hacking him and doing all sorts of things and putting 2 guys on him, and he's just a squiggly little wiggly thing that moves him out of places and turns and creates space and just does all these amazing things that you see, right? And so that is and you could say it's in a short span right now, and we'll see if this extends any further, right? But the bottom line is people are starting to think about the LA Galaxy again. May not be what it was in 2014 or 2012 where they were like, get me any team but the LA Galaxy. I'm nervous just looking at them. That's not here yet, but it's building. Something is happening there, and the perception across the league has changed. The Galaxy have said, I'll finish. I think I was talking to a prominent broadcaster, and we were talking about the LA Galaxy earlier in the year, and this person said, the Galaxy can't control a game. Right? There's no way for them to control a game. It's why when they score first, they win a lot, is because that's how they can control a game, by controlling a scoreboard and then making people chase them, and they can usually do enough to get around and score wins, right? Now you have a guy with Puig and Brugman who can control games. And that's a huge difference, especially when you're going to the playoffs. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, you bringing up Brugman was a great point also, because I remember during the summer, I was guilty of this, kind of groaning over Brugman. Oh, we're getting a guy from the second division in Spain, La Liga. Is this really going to be the guy who's the difference maker? You have guys across town signing players from Real Madrid, players from Juventus, national team caliber players. And I'm thinking, this is going to be our guy who's going to make the difference. And he has. Brugman has absolutely been that guy in the midfield, that kind of stalwart, just six that we've wanted. And then Riqui being, the cam that we've all been asking for since 2014. And that's something that I, was thinking about. And I want to shout out Delusional Fan, love the name, in the chat. He said, imagine Chicharito wins MLS Cup and they don't take him to the World Cup. And it just made me think of something. When was the last time that a prominent player was left off of a World Cup roster who was synonymous with that national team and then went on to win MLS Cup, to stick it in the nose of that coach who snubbed him? Can you think of a time when something like that happened?
I wasn't at that press conference standing front row.
Yeah,
I wasn't.
So it just makes me think of that Landon Donovan connection, left off the national team, playing like he had something to prove. And I think he absolutely had a fire lit under him that season and helped carry the Galaxy to that 2014 championship. So, Chicharito, Tata Martino officially came out and said Chicharito will not be going to the World Cup. And so maybe that's that little fire. We know how he reacted to the Clowns being left off the national team. Okay, let's do some work. Let's get it done. Maybe, right. Like you said, who wants the LA Galaxy right
Nobody.
now? I don't think anyone. With Chicharito scoring goals like he is, with Riqui, with Gaston, I think they are a scary team right now. So I hate doing this because we know where this is leading on Saturday.
You're building this up, and I'm sitting over here being like, am I actually going to have to be prepared for a long run in the playoffs? This is where this is leading. Yeah. You're building me up. You're feeding me all these, unicorns and rainbows, and I don't know how to handle that. Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while since I would say that you can for sure be optimistic about where the LA Galaxy are headed. What they have shown in a small sample size with Riqui and Gaston is real deal. It's real soccer, and we've seen how the formations have fit that, and how the personnel has clicked, and how things have come together. And you can't say that. I've said, at least the LA Galaxy were playing some fun soccer to watch over the last year, right? Over last year and through some of this, at least it was fun, because at some point during the GBS time, it stopped being fun. You were like, this is not good soccer. Nothing's happening. There's no progression. There's nothing there. And I think that with Vanny this year, there was a real sense that things were going backwards, whenever they started on that slide in the middle of the middle of the season. But now you sort of turn around and you look and you're like, this is it. This is the team that you were expecting. This is the formation, a 4-3-3 that you were finally expecting. This was the Douglas Costa that you were expecting.
Yeah, which is a funny thing, because I got to shout out Patrick in the chat as well, because he was one who was kind of getting on us when we were saying making the playoffs is good enough. And that was like kind of what I was saying with my notes a month ago. This is who that team, just getting in is good enough. And I agree. I still stand by that. But based on how they've been playing, they make you think, there could be something more. So, 4 or 5 games ago, it was okay, just getting into the playoffs. I'm happy with that. And then you see just, them, dominating games, having these triangle passes, these building up in the offense and scoring some pretty goals. And you think, okay, maybe they can make a run. They can go on a stretch here. Up until this point, they still haven't won more than 2 games, but they hadn't, gone a string of games without having some losses in between. So this is, they went through one of their longest stretches without a loss. And I think that's when you start to believe those things. So you're absolutely right, Patrick, to call us out for our change in tone, but it's those difference makers that have come in and changed our perception because how they've been playing. The product on the field is different now than it was, 8 games ago. It just is.
Yeah. I think you could feel that. By the way, $10 super chat from Gary. And Gary's talking about Chicha and Dayon and how they don't play well together. Where does the news of Chicha coming back leave Dayon for 2023? Let's $10 super chat. Thank you, Gary. We will get to that as well. It's coming up here in just a couple minutes. So I want to get to the Rose Bowl news first and the LA Galaxy. We've known, Eric. We've known for about a week and a half, 2 weeks that this was coming down. There was
that's always the funniest thing is like you're like, hey, can't tell anyone this is happening. And then it comes out and you're like, oh, we've known. It sounds like you're.
I know.
You're being a jerk, but that's. The
it wasn't
thing
my
about stuff like this. Yeah.
It wasn't my news to tell. It was one of those like if it's mine and I break it, then I can tell you. But it wasn't mine to tell, and so it was sort of one of those things that I was just prepared for whenever it came out. The LA Galaxy sent me a rose.
Yeah, that was
which
cool.
was nice. Yeah, I thought maybe it was hometown date time. I didn't know if they're going to come meet my family or how it was going to go. The whole deal.
We're going to go off the rails here.
Yes,
Bachelor in Paradise is back, and so I'm the rare unicorn where I don't watch The Bachelor, but I only watch Bachelor in Paradise because that's where it gets super messy and super sloppy. So I'm more familiar with the roses from that than the actual Bachelor show. So if you like a good mess and you like the LA Galaxy, so you got to check out Bachelor in Paradise.
My wife is very, very sexist whenever it comes to this. We don't watch The Bachelorette. We can only watch The Bachelor. That is the only one that she approves of us watching, and we don't watch it that much. So we haven't done that since probably pre-pandemic. When we didn't have kids who as soon as they go to bed, we're just like, I'm so tired. I don't want to talk.
We're just going to doom scroll.
I would like to shout out the LA Galaxy as well. Got me out of a good, tougher situation. I got home and had the rose with me, and my wife was like, "Oh, did you get that for me?" And so I ripped the tag off and was like, "Yes, I did. Here it is, baby. That is for you." And so I haven't told her that the Galaxy gave it to me yet. I just told her that I bought it. So don't be telling on her.
I was going to say, and she'll never know because she won't.
And she doesn't listen to the show. No.
Back to Rose Bowl news.
Okay, so Rose Bowl. Cool. I guess I'm going to be
just take the air right out of it.
I am going to tell you right now that and everybody knows this, that I hate the Rose Bowl. This is not a new thing. This is not like Josh saw the news of the Rose Bowl and he was like, "Oh, I hate this." I've hated the Rose Bowl for many, many years. And I don't like the press box. I don't like the stadium. I sat in the seats. I think it's a very old stadium, which has tons of history and obviously LA Galaxy history, which is why they're doing it. Somebody said, "Why are they doing this?" I'm like, it's a nostalgia play. It is 100% a nostalgia play. Plus there's 2 other reasons. One is you can fill it with a lot of people. So there's a pot there. I will add that part of that. Yeah. So money, right? Duh. That's a big one. It also, I think, it locks in sort of the LA Galaxy at the Rose Bowl sort of being like, that's their home, right? So it's, again, the nostalgia play. It's like, this is ours. We were here a long time ago. We're going to come back. Everybody come join us, and we'll see how it is. And then, obviously, this was, a big deal because of Apple TV that's going to be taking this over as well. So the Rose Bowl idea, I think I'm the one, remember, who's been saying that they should play the games, the El Tráficos, at SoFi Stadium.
I agree.
I've been saying that. Make it 50-50 and 50-50, and one person gets a home game, the other person, but you both play them there. Mm-hmm. Apparently, whenever we go to a St. Louis, adding St. Louis into the mix, there's going to be an extra team again, and because of that, you're not going to have a balanced schedule. It'll be unbalanced, so it looks like the LA Galaxy will be playing the LAFC 3 times next year. So one of the LA Galaxy's home games, because they'll have 2, will be in Pasadena. That will be more neutral than I think people will expect it to be, but it's going to be, it's going to be one of those. I have no problems with it, the whole deal. And the expectation is that LAFC is going to neutral site, quote unquote neutral site. I would imagine that if you're the LA Galaxy, you don't let them pick SoFi. I am very anti anybody claiming SoFi for their own. I would expect that they move the 300 yards across the Esplanade and go into the Coliseum, and then that's theirs. That makes more sense to me.
Yeah. To me, it seems like that's exactly what's going to happen. It feels like this is kind of like a soft launch for the 2026 World Cup. Obviously, with the Rose Bowl news, I'm right there 100% just going to co-sign. It's a nostalgia factor. We've been here before. It's a historic venue. The Galaxy is a historic club by MLS standards, and it just it has that feel to it. The thing that did surprise me, and you also pointed out, is the Apple TV connection. Everything that came out from MLS, from the ad, they all had that Apple logo on there. So this feels like this is going to be the big splash for Apple. Obviously, with the rights deal, they're going to want to make a big splash. So instead of going to a home stadium, why not go to a 90,000 seat venue and have one of the biggest games possible, break attendance records, have a rivalry that's real, have fan bases that don't like each other? What better way to kick off your TV deal than with a full capacity Rose Bowl with an El Tráfico? That's how you kick off your TV coverage. So that part, I think, is a huge wrinkle on it. But when I saw the news, I said, well, why aren't they playing at SoFi? It's a brand new stadium. And I'm like, well, that's the calm before the storm. The Galaxy is going to do the Rose Bowl, and then the next year it's going to be LAFC is going to do SoFi because they're building towards the World Cup. SoFi is going to be one of the venues, and it just feels like that's exactly where it's going. But to your point about the Rose Bowl being a neutral site, I think SoFi will be a neutral site as well. You'll see just as many Galaxy fans at SoFi as you would at the Rose Bowl. I don't think it changes that aspect of it. And then I think the one last button that I'll put on this is the detractors of this, I think, are just the detractors of whenever you see an El Tráfico, whenever you get a mass gathering of LAFC fans and LA Galaxy fans, inevitably there's violence and there's issues and there's things like that. And okay, having it at a 90,000 seat stadium, wow, that's pretty cool. You get this huge crowd. Okay, now you just have more people to cause ruckus and more, when you say, oh, there's just a small group of people, who cause the problems. Well, when you have 90,000, that small group is now going to be larger. It's still going to be small compared to everyone that's there, but now it's going to be more people just in terms of sheer numbers. And I think that's the part that makes you a little bit nervous and a little bit uneasy, just because that's always the part that leaves a stain. But that's also, I don't want to say this while co-signing it, but that's kind of what makes the rivalry what it is also, is that there is that edge, that danger, that's kind of what the appeal is as well. So, not that I condone any of that funny business, but at the same time, that's kind of the appeal. You want to get right up close to it. You see it with, supporters groups when they light the flares. It's like MLS loves to show those pictures of those flares going off, but they'll be happy to kick those people out of the stadium for lighting those flares. So they like to go right up to the edge. And I think that's the one kind of thing that you want to be careful about.
I think people have been arguing whether or not they can sell out that stadium. I think they can in LA with that. And it depends on what the prices of tickets are. If they want to go also and jack everything up to $150 a seat or whatever. And if you're a season ticket member in 2023, you will get tickets to this game. I, for one, don't love that it's the first game of the year. I know it has to be, but I would rather both teams be having played and ironed some things out before they face each other. But hey, make it the first one. I mean, flip a coin even more. Why not? Right?
Yeah, it's I think that lowers the stakes from a season perspective, because whenever you get on and start getting in your group for the season, you say, okay, if they don't want to think this far ahead, if they beat us, well, it was the first game, they hadn't gelled yet, and then if you win, you're like, hey, we've got those points in the bag. So it kind of lowers the stakes from a competitor. You're not towards the end of the season where you're jockeying for playoff position. It's kind of you can throw away that game and enjoy it for what it is.
Unknown caller.
We're getting a call.
Apparently, I should probably answer it.
Is that Chris Klein is on the line?
It says scam likely, so I mean, I will not answer that particular one. It's always nice when your phone is connected. I never have people call me during this time. But hey,
when you said scam likely, I had another joke, but I'm not going to say it.
You're not going to say it. Very good. By the way, I would like to say Wata gave us a $2 super chat, and it says, remember the 2014 Chevy Cup? I was there for that. I remember that. It was Manchester United, if I remember correctly.
I was there for that too.
Oh
wait,
man.
no, that was at the Rose Bowl. I was not at that one. Thankfully, I was not at that one.
Okay, that was the one that was at the Rose Bowl against Manchester United, and I think Manchester United ended up winning 7-2 or something like that. Yeah, it was a lot to a little. I don't remember the whole thing. Alex gave us a $10 super chat and says, will booking the Rose Bowl cement Chris Klein for at least one more year, and will they use the opportunity to debut a retro-influenced new away kit? I mean, on the Chris Klein thing, I think people make way too big a deal about somebody doing something for next season, as in like they're not going to do their job all the way up until the point when they can't do their job anymore, right? Like it's like if you're going to not renew somebody's contract, Chris Klein would be delinquent of his duties if he wasn't planning for 2023 right now.
Yeah.
And even though he may or may not have a contract, right? And basically he said, I think the last time he talked to Kevin was they're going to talk about it after the season. So there's no guarantee that Chris Klein will be there in 2023. You have to do these things. This is what you do as a team administrator, as a president, is you think ahead, you plan for events, you plan those events. Because do you think that this whole event comes together if you start planning it in 2023? It doesn't.
Or you start in Christmas when everyone's on vacation and
right.
And yeah, when all that fun's happening. The one thing that I will say is even if he is going to have the discussions after the season, the Galaxy, the roster finally gelling, them getting in a decent playoff spot, possibly getting a home playoff game, getting this Rose Bowl situation with the Apple TV opener. These are all nice little things on the resume builder. So I understand where Alex is coming from. Like if things go swimmingly, this all signs could point like, why are you going to get rid of someone when
right.
all these things lined up well? And it looks like we're in really good shape. We're going to make, tons of money selling, out, 3 times, 4 times the capacity of our current stadium. Why are we going to let this guy go? So I understand the question and where it's coming from.
Right.
So it could
sense.
Absolutely be something that adds another feather to the cap.
It makes sense to state it that way, but then you'd also have to go like this through 2017. You'd have to close your eyes from 2017 on, right? And so that's the whole thing. This isn't a recency thing. This is an overall thing. But I don't think this points in either direction. Just I know why people say it. For me personally, it's not a clincher, right? It's like if the Galaxy announced that they're going to sign a new designated player, which we're going to get to in a second. If the Galaxy announced they're going to sign a new designated player before Christmas, right? And does that mean Chris Klein is staying? Well, no. I mean, again, you have to do things to prepare for 2023.
It could.
It could.
I don't know if you've watched the Figo documentary on Netflix. It's about his transfer from Barcelona to Real Madrid. And so, the president of the club was like, if I win the election, I'm going to get – it was kind of a wild statement at the time, especially – so if you haven't watched that, check out the Figo affair on Netflix. But that's kind of one of those things. If he does make a big signing, there's some possibilities of names that become available after World Cup and people who are unhappy at their clubs. And, if you do get some of those names, it's absolutely another feather in the cap. Like, okay, well, if I get this deal done, will you extend me? Those are the type of things that – it could be a recency bias on the sheer, magnitude of the people that you can get, to sign with you as a DP. But we don't have DP spots available.
No, we don't. And this photo should have probably been a clue, and I certainly took it as one whenever we saw it, because, of course, we didn't know everything that we now know. What a difference a couple days makes. Chicharito being featured prominently in the Rose Bowl ad whenever the Galaxy put it out on social media. Chicharito getting a lot of play anyway. I think he's hands down the LA Galaxy's MVP. I know a lot of people are like, it's Riqui. And I get why you would say that, but Riqui hasn't been here that long, and so I'm sort of still like, nah, it's Chicha. Back-to-back 17-goal seasons now, so 34 goals, 36 goals total as an LA Galaxy, as a member of the LA Galaxy, moves him to 7th overall in the LA Galaxy top goal scorers. We've talked about Chicharito, and certainly on this show, we were even theorizing about whether or not he has done enough to earn a contract extension, and whether or not he would be coming back. And not even a contract, he has an option year, right? So we all knew it was 3+1, and that the option year was what we thought was a team option. It now turns out it wasn't a team option. It was an incentives-based option and it may have been a team option, had the incentives not been met, right? But speaking today in front of the media, and I think Gio Garcia was the one who asked the question about it, Chicha sort of got fed up with the reporters. He's like, you guys should know this stuff. And they're like, and we had to educate Chicha, being like, they don't tell us anything. So Chicha said during the press conference or the media availability today, he said, no, I'm already locked in for next year. I scored 11 goals. If I scored 11 goals and I played more than 60% of the total available minutes, I think I had the total available minutes, but he said like 60% of the minutes, then I automatically get another year. So his performance metrics were 11 goals and at least 60% of the total available minutes. Those were the performance things. Now, because I have nothing better to do with my life, and I mean almost nothing. I went back and took that in and said, okay, so when did he actually get this? How long has he known that he's coming back next year? And the answer to that is Chicharito scored his 11th goal on 8/19/2022. So August 19, 2022. That is the 3-3 draw with Seattle. All right. That is when he knew he got it. Now, why do we know that? Because 6 days earlier, he had just passed the 60% of total available minutes in the 5-2 win over Vancouver.
That was
right?
my question. I was going to say, but was that at 60%? But I guess
6 days.
That many games to play, yeah.
6 days earlier, he had passed it. So 6 days earlier, and then 11 goals, and he scored his 11th goal on August 19th, 2022. Now, rightfully so, I believe. People are sort of upset at the fact, one, that it has taken the LA Galaxy didn't have a choice in this, and that basically this was a vested option, right? So if you get X number of things and performance metrics, if you cross those off, then you can then get X, then you automatically get this next year, right? So Chicharito is going to be with the LA Galaxy in 2023, but people are saying those performance metrics weren't very high. In fact, Sean on Twitter says, seems like a very low bar for a $6 million DP striker. Not mad that he hit whatever triggers the Galaxy set. It just seems very lazy negotiating by the G's. He hits it. Let's see. He doesn't know. Let's see. I'm trying to know work. No. If he hits it, he's back. No work needs to be done. If he doesn't, then he's not back, and still no work needs to be done. I would say that would be selling Chicharito very short, because I don't know that there's been a more motivated individual on the LA Galaxy throughout the last 2 years for sure. Obviously, the first year with the pandemic and his divorce and everything that was going on, or separation. I don't know that they're officially divorced. The separation, those are pretty heavy hits. As somebody who's been divorced, I can tell you that year was not a good year for me. And my performance at work was not a good year. And Cheech's performance at work was not a good year, right?
It definitely showed. And then also with, what can also motivate you to score 11 goals is $6 million. Yeah, that'll also do it, because that option, I'm sure that number is already built in. So that's one of those things. Shout out to Gio for Gio Garcia for asking the question. And it made me chuckle so much, because as someone who's been on the podcast and we talk about this, well, we never know what the deals actually are. We never know what these contracts say. So when Chicharito said, well, you guys should know this, it's public. It's like, well, actually it's not public. That's the issue, that we always have to speculate and make these guesses. It's actually part of why we have a podcast. It gives us things to speculate and talk about. So that's kind of the funny thing about it. But to your point, is that the metric? When I first saw it, I thought, well, he scored 36 goals. Was it over the course of 3 years? 12 goals a season? That seems reasonable.
Right.
Because then I was thinking about, well, what's the number? 15 goals a season? Well, that's kind of high. 20 goals a season? That's unreasonable. When you look at the all-time leading scorers list, like you said, Landon Donovan's best season, Robbie Keane's best season, that's, just over 20-something goals. So you expect him to have Landon Donovan's best season 3 years in a row? No, let's lower that number. So 12 goals a season over the course of 3 years to meet that goal, that feels like you've earned it. That feels like, it's probably fair in that regard. But to have it be 11 goals on the third year, I don't know. That is kind of interesting. It does seem like a little bit of a low bar, but also, I'm not the one who does the deal. If you would have said after 2020, okay, he's going to score 11 goals in that third year to pick up the option, so, well, okay, goodbye, Chicharito. We don't have to deal with it. Even earlier this season, we were saying, well, I think it's time to cut ties. We probably don't need him on the team next year. Dayon's looking good, but then he's having that performance. So again, I'm kind of with Tron there. I'm not mad that he got the extension. I think he's been performing. He's getting that goals. He's probably going to break his LA Galaxy record from last season over the next 2 games. It's just one of those things. Okay, I'm not mad at it. You were talking about it with the Panda. Rather, Robbie Keane pops in my head. We probably held on a year too long, but he earned it. He absolutely deserved to get that extension and to hold on to him for another year, but he just didn't have that magic in that last season. So
I think there's too much focus though on this. Let's do an exercise. Let's make it more difficult for Chicharito. So what is a reasonable number of goals for a $6 million designated player? Now, also understand $6 million. Yes, a lot of that is for what he does on the field. A lot of that is what he does off the field as well. So the $6 million fits into nicely sort of where the Galaxy are. But let's be more reasonable. So what's a more reasonable, if you said 11 is low, then this season, how many goals do you think would be good?
Well, it's one of those, I think 15. I think 15.
Okay, so he made that, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's been performing. And so I think 15 is a reasonable number to say that's a good season, because if you go higher than that, you're talking MVP caliber. And so to say you need to be a league MVP level to get extended. Well, but maybe that's correct. Okay, if we're going to pay you this much money, you need to be playing like a league MVP. Maybe that's not crazy. I don't think it's crazy to throw that out there either. But maybe he doesn't sign that contract. If that's
exactly. That's sort of the whole thing. It's like maybe he doesn't sign that contract, right? Maybe you don't have him for that. I'll tell you right now. I saw somebody on Twitter say it should be at least 25 goals, and so then I went out and I found my little chart, and I went here for the LA Galaxy's all-time single-season goal scorers. So 25 goals would mean that you would get rid of every designated player outside of Zlatan Ibrahimovic, right? So again, Landon Donovan, Robbie Keane, Eduardo Hurtado, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, who did 22 goals. Even Zlatan in 2018 only had 22 goals, all right? But you were saying Chicha has to score 25 goals. Not reasonable, right? And so I'm fine if you say it was low, and I think that there's even a good argument that says 11 was probably too low. But it doesn't really matter because he was going to meet that performance all this entire year. Almost any reasonable number that you put in here, say 15 goals, he met it, right? And you say, okay, so how many minutes? Well, he should be playing at least 75% of the total available minutes. Okay, let's check. 84.9% of the total available minutes. He has done a lot to earn this. Now, I was with you, Eric. We had been talking about this. I was actually on the fence saying, I love arguing for Chicharito because what he has done is actually pretty impressive over the last 2 seasons. If you throw out the first season, somebody said you couldn't throw out the first season, and I said I can do whatever I want. So it's one of those. I'm not. But
even with 36 goals over 3 years, I mean, we were talking about when Zlatan left, who's going to replace the goals? Now I think if Chicharito left, and even if you're willing, there are people who are willing to let Zlatan go. If you're willing to let Chicharito go, where are those goals going to fill in? Is Dion going to make up 17 goals next season? He shows a lot of promise. I like him a lot, but I don't know the expectation for him is 17 goals. Right. So that makes it interesting. Yeah.
I don't think you could set that expectation. I would like to point out, should he score 3 goals in the next 2 games, he ties Landon Donovan and Robbie Keane for all-time LA Galaxy single season goal scorers. Landon Donovan and Robbie frickin' Keane. Robbie Keane's best year ever, he had 20 goals. Chicharito has been 3 goals from that last year and this year. 3 goals is not that much, Eric. It's not like it's this huge gap there.
That's a Panenka and a couple sitters away. He could already be there.
Yeah, it's very good. Mr. Provino, by the way, says Chicha scored the majority of the 17 goals without service this year as well. Now he has Riqui Puig out there. You can see that starting to funnel in and be better as well, right? He's starting to see more service. I actually feel pretty good that he's going to get hit 20. I feel like he's going to get 3 in the next 2 games because he's just on that. Remember when we were like his confidence is broken, the Panenka broke him, right? The whole deal, and now he's fixed again. See, it's just the
so funny thing is after he got 11, that's when he tried the Panenka because he knew I'm safe now, and so that's when you take those wild risks.
That's right.
That's
what you know.
You got it. Yeah, we got some more super chats.
I'm sorry, we do. Alan gave us a $5 super chat and says, if Chicharito scores 17 plus goals next season, that's asking a lot already, Alan. Will the Galaxy keep him for another year? Shout out to the Los Galactic Bros for Las Vegas. So shout out to those. $5 super chat, appreciate that. 17 plus. Did the Galaxy keep him for another? No, this is last year. I thought this year was his last year. I didn't know there were metrics.
If he scores 17 goals, I mean, how do you let him walk? The question is, do you keep him for another year? Maybe not as a DP, which is what we're saying.
How are you going to tell Chicharito with 17 plus goals he's not going to be a designated player? That's the whole thing.
That wasn't good enough.
Sorry. You could be a TAM player. Maybe we'll make you a U22. Can you fake a birth certificate? That's one of those things. That's why this year I was like, no, you can't. People were like, just get him as a TAM player. Why would Chicharito take TAM? He had 17 plus goals this year. Right. And so that's one. And then a big shout out to Jimmy for a $20 super chat as well. So certainly appreciate that. Thanks, Jimmy.
Jimmy, Scott. Yeah, we're only missing one more. But yeah, big shout out to Jimmy and Alan and everyone else. And Los Galactic Bros. I know they have some funny stuff that they post on social media. So good dudes there.
Very good. So I don't necessarily have a problem. I'm sorry. I don't. It's like whatever. I'm certainly. Here is the deal though. And we do have to revise everything. We said the LA Galaxy will have a designated player spot open for sure this year because we figured that Chicharito wasn't coming back. His recent form, all the things that we've seen now indicate that, of course, he will be back. He told us as much, 2023. I also would like to point out the Galaxy being silent on this was not a great look for them.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
I don't understand.
They should have gotten out in front of it instead of Chicharito. Yeah, it feels like they hung him out to dry. But Chicharito also maybe overshared. he'll tell you what his contract details are. He'll read it to you if you ask him what the weather's like. Yeah, so my contract at 11 goals. Yeah, so it's one of those things. But you're right. I feel like they could have gotten out in front of it.
Yeah. And I don't like that. Again, to me, it almost feels like we know the fan base reaction is going to be bad, so we're just not going to say anything. And I don't think
smells like that. Yeah.
And I honestly don't think it's a PR thing. Up to a certain point, it's not a PR thing, right? It's more like people who know that I don't think that people in the front office who are like doing social media and PR know that Chicharito hit his contract option. Like, I don't think they'd have the contracts in front of them and they get to watch that. In fact, I know most of the time they don't, because I've asked contract details and they're like, I don't know, I don't see the contracts, right? So that's one part of it. But the other part is that it certainly feels, if you knew he was, when you're doing this Rose Bowl thing, you knew he was coming back, right?
Well, which is why he's on the poster.
Which is why he's on the poster, right? Exactly. And so those are the types of things that I don't like. And I don't think that's fair to him. And I certainly don't think it's fair to the fans. Quite honestly, I don't... MLS, the whole reason that we even know some contract details now is, remember the player for New York who like decided to leave and they're like, no, you have a contract. Yeah, I think it might have been Kaku, right? And they were like, he's like, no, my contract's up. And they're like, no, we exercise your option and the whole deal. And then they're arguing with each other.
Wasn't he already like
lawsuits.
in another country? He
yes.
already like
and signed with somebody else. Yeah. And he signed with somebody else and they're like, you can't because you're our player because we issued the option. And they're like, well, that wasn't my agent. Like, you sent it to the guy who wasn't my agent. I have a new agent now. Like, and all this stuff. Well, now that actually triggered MLS to release more contract details. So that way everybody knew, like, we know that there's an option on Chicharito's contract, right? So we knew there was an option. We just didn't know how it was triggered. So I didn't love that. That's not how I think, quote unquote, the best organization in Major League Soccer. That's not how you operate that. Even if you're going to get blowback. Like, there should have been a thing that whenever Chicha got his 11th and like the whole deal, that there should have been, and they knew it was locked in for next year. There should have been an announcement plan that says Chicharito's coming back from 2023. It would have been good to like be clean with that and have a press conference about it and do the whole thing, at least like during midweek. I realize it's the middle of the whole thing. And I'm sure I will have this discussion on Saturday with them whenever I see them as well. It's like, why wasn't there more?
The one thing that I will add is something that we always want to see out of Chicharito is, you've mentioned it a lot of times on the show before, is after a game, tell us about your goals. What have you been setting that? And he says, as long as I win and just what's best for the team. But here he says, well, it's part of my contract. I had to score. He knows what his metrics are. He knows what his contract says. He has goals. He wanted to hit those 11 goals. So I liked seeing that part where, okay, he's motivated from these factors to, right, look out for himself and try to get those goals. And you see it, like all good strikers, they're looking to shoot first, and everyone, instead of shooting, should be passing the ball to him. That's what the best strikers in the world, those are their personality traits. So even though he says the right things in post game and in press conference, he feels that, and that shows that he knows what those metrics are. And I think that's a good thing. That's what you want from your star DP goal scorer.
Now the focus turns. Now there's more pressure on Kevin Cabral and whether or not he stays, right? And whether or not you loan him out, or whether or not you keep Douglas Costa.
I was going to say, do you think he met his metrics? Good times.
What would be a metric he could have met?
What's a reasonable expectation?
Yeah. Like most flubbed shots inside the 18, like he had to reach at least 6, and now he's made it there, so he gets to stay.
We're making fun, and but I feel so bad for him. It looked like it had a promise, and then it went away, and it fell off a cliff, and it just kept falling, and then it blew up, and then after it blew up, it fell down again, and then a bird came by and did its business on top of it. Like it just keeps building and snowballing and getting worse. Because I want to see him succeed. I want to see Cabral figure it out and get that mojo back. But it just every game gets progressively worse and worse, and more mistakes and more glaring things, and it's just. We have to laugh about it because that's how you kind of cope with these things. But I do feel so bad for him and how it's going. It's really unfortunate. Someone who we thought was going to get there, and it's just not happening.
One of the things that we can certainly all agree on, and this was today, there was an open practice today. There are for season ticket members, so there were a bunch of season ticket members who were at the practice. So there was autographs and pictures and all that stuff. But you had your main guy here, Riqui Puig, was tweeting out. He said, "Thanks for making me feel at home," and he's signing a number 6 jersey of a little kid. Which, if that doesn't make you say "aw" and give you the nice warm and fuzzies about it, Disney Channel over here doing all that you can. I think Efrain Alvarez actually signed. There was a video out, and Efrain actually actually signed Riqui Puig's jersey, and if I was Riqui, I'd burn that.
See, there you go, making fun of another player. He brought the value down of the Riqui practice jersey. That's unfortunate.
I'm throwing people under the bus today. That is what is happening. Speaking of throwing people under the bus, or at least making the bus explode.
There it is.
There it was. What a transition. Professional in every way. Michael Bay, director Michael Bay, Mr. I'm going to blow everything up, was at Dignity Health Sports Park today. They were shooting a World Cup commercial, and they gave him a jersey, and they forced him, probably by waterboarding, I'm guessing, to say "G's up," and it was just humorous. It's a nice little video, and it's good to sort of see that it's there.
So Galaxy make it through MLS Cup playoffs. The gauntlet.
Right.
Chicharito has a penalty in the MLS Cup finals.
Panenka
Goes to take the Panenka, but cut to black. Lincoln Park starts playing, directed by Michael Bay. I think we have how the season finishes.
and then the goal blows up.
Yeah.
And then Kevin Cabral misses it from 3 yards out.
Good times.
By the say, what the gave us a $5 super chat. Says, don't feel bad for Cabral. He has a McLaren like Siani. Does he have a McLaren?
I was going to say, a Twitter account needs to be updated. We need to have Cabral's McLaren now.
That I don't know who runs that, but somebody should.
It feels like too much car for him. Is that rude? Right? He's not like Mike Siani was like a big deal. Like, okay, but I don't know. It feels like a lot of car.
No, I'm not going there.
Okay,
no,
fair enough.
I'm glad you're throwing people under the bus as well. That's
just saying.
You can just say.
I'm not saying. I'm just saying.
I know. I understand. So anyway, so that's sort of where we sit with that. I wanted to cover a couple things, and we talked a little bit about Apple TV. I wanted to talk about Joe and Kobe real quick. Kevin gave me a call today and said that he had some conversations about Joe and Kobe with the LA Galaxy, and here is the deal. We all know that basically as you're watching the last couple broadcasts here, because I believe all the MLS playoffs are nationally televised, right?
Yeah,
so this is it. Local television ends in Houston, I think. And so there won't be any more Joe and Kobe and Nikki, and that whole group basically goes away because as of 2023, all broadcast crews will be employees of Major League Soccer. Right.
Okay.
Now, we know that there is somebody at CAA, which is the Creative Artists Agencies based here in Los Angeles. If you haven't seen the big CAA building, you should. I've been inside of it a couple times. It's very nice.
I was going to say, if you live in Southern California and don't know someone who has touched base with something at CAA eventually, and you haven't lived there long enough.
Yeah, so CAA, they have somebody there, a woman who is doing the recruitment for the broadcast crews, right? And so they were doing that. And that's so that's happening as we speak, and things are going through.
Which gives me hope.
Right. And they're pretty smart about those things, so I expect that. But there's also some like weird things here. Now, the LA Galaxy apparently, according to what Kevin told me, and he told me I could share this with everybody. The LA Galaxy currently made their case to Major League Soccer that basically said, these guys have been with us forever. You guys should hire them as a crew, so that way they could do games. But it may end up being that would mean that they wouldn't just do Galaxy games, that they might do other games, which may be good for them and
good
fine.
for the league. Yeah,
it is.
Yeah.
But it does feel. Would you want to watch Joe and Kobe doing a game that is Vancouver and San Jose? Like
if you want to get me to watch a Vancouver and San Jose game, that's one way to do it. Yeah,
okay.
Get the soothing sounds of Joe Tatino. Absolutely. But yeah, I think the thing that comes to mind is with ESPN Plus when they have Open Cup games. Sometimes you see, and Joe was one of the callers of those. Sometimes you see like they have USL games and USL 2, and they always find these announcers on there, and you think, well, this isn't like. I mean, no disrespect by this, but like this isn't top shelf, high level talent, but they need to fill just the sheer volume of games that they have on the app. I think with the sheer volume of games that you're going to have, maybe not every home officiating crew for 28 teams, 29 teams is going to get hired on by MLS.
No,
but I think you cherry pick your best ones because you need a huge roster, especially if the games are going to be going off on the same day at the same time. I think, you have a really strong case that Kobe and Joe can be one of those crews. And I think good for them and good for the league, having now moved out of the Spectrum area, you having to watch the games on ESPN Plus and hearing some of the away broadcast teams, you can do a
It's
lot
rough.
worse than Kobe and Joe. Trust me, you
It's-
could do a
it's
lot worse.
A lot easily do a lot worse. I was talking to some national broadcasters. This was a while ago. This was probably 5, 6, 7 years ago, and we were talking about some different things in the whole deal. And we were talking about local crews, and we were like, "Man, there's some rough ones out there, right?" And like if you've listened or ESPN Plus them or I watched the game against San Jose. I was in Colorado, so I got the San Jose feed. I actually thought the San Jose guys did a pretty good job. I was not sitting there like banging my head against things, and I think that's pretty high praise.
They were on. I think the one thing that you can ask from when you're listening to, when you're watching a broadcast crew of a team that's not your own, is honesty. Like, okay, be honest, be trans. And I think the San Jose crew knew who their team was, and they were honest about the performance that was happening. So that's what you want, and that was fair.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Now in 2024, I'm told that's when the radio option comes in, right? So 2024 is whenever you will possibly be able to go to the drop down menu and select the audio that you want to play. And so there has to be like this bridge year. And so if Joe and Kobe don't have anything to do, and I should point out, I know for sure Joe is, and I believe Kobe is as well. They're employees of the LA Galaxy, right? Of LA Galaxy, of AEG. They get their check signed by the LA Galaxy, that whole thing, for doing their broadcast stuff. And then next year they would be possibly, if they get picked up as a crew, they would be, employees of MLS. And then in 2024, there's the option for the secondary audio, which would be like a radio version, but you're able to pull it up and it would be synced with the game going on and all that stuff. But there's a year that's a gap in there that makes me uncomfortable about things. I would be very surprised, knowing how synonymous Joe and Kobe are with the LA Galaxy, that they get picked up for just the broadcast for everything. It's almost like they're it's like Vin Scully used to do this, right?
Yeah,
he would go and call like playoff games and like nationally televised things, but everybody knows he's the Dodgers announcer, right?
Correct.
And so it was always sort of like, oh, he's calling this game, but we know he's the Dodgers announcer, which isn't a horrible thing, but it is a little bit like, if you're the San Francisco Giants and you got Vin Scully, I mean, they would be so lucky to have Vin Scully announcing their games and stuff. But it rubs you sort of the wrong way, right? If you're LAFC, do you want Joe and Kobe calling your games, right? Like your home game. Do you want that? And that's sort of where it comes into like some of these things, and that's why I don't know that anything's going to happen. So anyway, just speculation going on, but things are being talked about, things being are being worked on, and they're trying to figure out a solution for this. So for me, that's sort of, I just wanted to give everybody an idea of where that was coming.
And it's good to hear that, because that is one of those things that we heard, okay, now with this new crew, how's it all going to work? And so just to get more information as it gets closer, gets us a little bit of hope. And to your point, if it doesn't work out, I think it would very much behoove the LA Galaxy to keep Joe and Kobe on in some respect, whether it's just the YouTube broadcast or radio version of, for people who can't, watch the game, just so you can hear it, just to keep them on, because to keep that continuity, we've been blessed with, Chick Hearns and Vin Scully's, Bob Miller, just iconic LA sports announcers. And I think just to keep that continuity, you don't want him with an off year. You want to keep him around to keep that consistency, keep the streak alive.
I think that makes sense. So the other thing, by the way, Logan asked, what about Nikki K as well? I've been in contact with Nikki. We've been talking about what her options are for next year. I think there's a question whether or not there's even going to be sideline reporters for the Apple stuff, right? So that has to be first, right? Because Nikki's a sideline reporter, the whole deal. I would say that for my money of her covering the LA Galaxy, I have talked with a lot of sideline reporters over the years, and Nikki tries so hard to get it right. And I think that you can really see that in what she does. So she's great. I think she's positioned well, that if there are sideline reporters, there's a good possibility she could pick up some of those roles. And I think she wants to. I think she's looking to do that. I mean, it's one thing to say, hey, I'm a sports, because she does Spectrum News and Spectrum.
I was going to say,
right?
she's also does other sports on Spectrum as well. So I think, she's got other irons in the fire as well. I think when you see on Spectrum Joe Tatino and Kobe Jones, it's for Galaxy only. Nikki also, I see her on some Lakers broadcasts and some other things as well. So she's got other things going on. So I'm glad to hear that she definitely wants to be a part of that. And I think she'd be a great addition as well. I'm right there with you. Yeah.
that's almost like a career shift when you think
Yeah.
about it. Like if you're going to go
becomes
be one of these
MLS,
crews, you're going to be an MLS person,
Yeah.
right? And do the sideline stuff. So I really think that's cool. Let's get to MLS. Soccer announces the nominees for the 2022 End of Year Awards. I just wanted to quickly touch on this. I would like to remind you that eventually these awards will be decided on by current MLS players, MLS coaches, technical directors, general managers, and select media members representing local and national outlets who consistently covered 2022 MLS regular season. I would like to say that they never give me a vote on any of this stuff, so don't even ask, right? Kevin gets
That's
votes on it.
unfortunate. That's unfortunate.
Well,
There should be one podcast should be allowed to get a vote, and we should be that podcast.
And we should, of course.
And
why
I
not?
should get my vote through you.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. I like that. The Landon Donovan MLS MVP nominees. The LA Galaxy did nominate Chicharito. You're allowed to nominate 2 players from a team. The LA Galaxy nominated Chicharito for that. He won't win, but he's certainly there. And
It's an honor just to be nominated.
I will also say that that he has scored. I think since August he has scored 10 goals, and the only person who is in that same breath with him is Hani Mukhtar, who has a good chance of actually being
he's probably going to be the
guy.
MVP.
Yeah, so that's it right now. Then there's All-State Goalkeeper of the Year. You can imagine that Jonathan Bond was nominated. He won't win. Defender of the Year is Julian Araujo and Derek Williams. Neither of them will win. Newcomers of the Year. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just this is honest, right?
I was going to say, talk about just being happy, to get into the playoffs. Yeah, Chicharito is not the league MVP.
Right.
Derek Williams, definitely not defensive MVP. Julian Araujo,
Right.
over the course of a season, is not the MVP.
No. Julian will rank up there probably in the top, 10.
Great-
But
Good
yeah.
season from Julian.
Yeah,
not
overall
an
good.
MVP.
He's
not a
been
definitive
picking it
year
up.
season.
Yeah. Newcomer of the Year nominees. There's some chances here, but I don't know how much is realistic or not. Gaston Brugman is a newcomer nominated, and Riqui Puig is nominated. Both of those guys have been really good, but you have to understand this is for the whole year,
Yeah,
right?
there were
So there's going to be
newcomers-
guys. Yeah, they were newcomers like just for half the year, Eric,
Yeah.
right? I mean, they're just here for a limited number of games, and you have guys who have been here for the whole year that are also in that newcomer range.
I was going to say, who would have been nice to nominate as a newcomer of the year would have been Douglas Costa, someone who would have been in a full season and been a newcomer. That's the type of guy. But I think you're right. Riqui Puig is definitely someone who, if you were to vote with a recency bias, he's the best player that is new to MLS right now. But that's not what the award is. It's over the course of a season, and I just don't think he has enough sample size.
I'm looking at this. My printout actually covered the actual name of this, but I believe it's the Young Player of the Year, and it's anybody who's age 22 or younger. Efrain Alvarez is in that. He won't win. Comeback Player of the Year nominees: the LA Galaxy nominated Chase Gasper. He won't win. The MLS Humanitarian of the Year. They nominated Chicharito. So that's it. And then there is the Siggy Schmidt MLS Coach of the Year. Greg Vanney was nominated for that. He won't win. Well, it depends.
No, he won't.
He shouldn't.
No, he does not.
What if the
deserve
Galaxy
to win.
finished third? What if the Galaxy finished? Josh Wolf?
Yeah, I think Josh Wolf. For what Austin
Jim
has
Curtin?
and what
Jim Curtin?
Oh, Jim Curtin will. Yeah, you're right. That's probably the correct answer.
I don't know the answer off the top of my head.
But
What's
it's not
his name?
Greg Vanney. If
Nancy?
the Galaxy finished third, I don't think it's because of Greg Vanney. And that's with no disrespect. It's just
Right.
Yeah,
I understand.
There are
That's fine.
coaches who have done more with less.
What is it? Is it Wilford Nancy up in Montreal?
You're making up names. I don't follow Canadian soccer.
There's French Canadians. You can't trust them. Shout out to all my Canadian friends. Anyway, so that was that. I wanted to make sure that we got through all of that. Let's turn the page now. Let's start talking about some of these things that are going to impact the LA Galaxy here very shortly. We talked a little bit about the schedule coming up. Obviously, RSL coming up at home. This is the game. This is the game. The Galaxy win this game. They are absolutely in the playoffs, and it keeps them on track to possibly squeak in to get a home field playoff game as well, which would be an interesting and I really want them to finish like third or fourth, because at many points during this season, I said the LA Galaxy were a top 3 team in the Western Conference. And if they finish fourth, I feel like I got that right. Like, I feel like I'm like, yeah, that was pretty close. I'll take that.
And I'll beat you with your own joke, because we talked
Yeah.
about this off air.
Right.
This team now is not the team at the beginning of the year, so you can't claim.
No.
Yeah, that's not fair.
I felt like they were going to progress, and it didn't happen. And so now it's one of those. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, you can't claim it, but I will anyway. Watch me, just watch me. If you're looking
before.
Yeah, if you're looking across the league, games start tomorrow night. Toronto and Miami. Toronto will host Miami. That's an interesting one, actually, because Miami is still, I think, trying to fight into those playoff spots and try to keep a spot and do all those fun things. So that's sort of there. New England hosts Atlanta. Colorado hosts Dallas. Don't need to watch that one unless you sort of want to see where Dallas is, and if you think you can catch Dallas.
They have to lose out. Dallas has to lose out their last 2 games. Yeah.
Right. So you're a Colorado fan if you're watching this for a bunch of reasons. Let's see, Charlotte and Philadelphia. That's a Supporters Shield. Philadelphia and LAFC battling off. I looked at 538 and they have Supporters Shield chance. LAFC 50% and Philadelphia 49%. So there's a little rounding going on in there. Cincinnati has been on an absolute tear. I would expect them to destroy Chicago. If you're looking at that game, Columbus hosts New York, Montreal hosts DC, San Jose and Minnesota. You're a San Jose fan.
You want to take those points off of Minnesota. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're a San Jose fan if you're a Galaxy fan, which is always tough to sort of swallow. Vancouver and Austin. You want Austin to win that game because you want them to take them off of Vancouver because you're not going to catch Austin. So that's something. And then the last game of the evening on Saturday is the LA Galaxy versus RSL. I was hoping all the games would be played on Saturdays. That way, like, you'd sort of know. But the bottom line is you won't. So as we go to Sunday, it's New York hosting Orlando. And then the game that is the interesting game, you are going to be an LAFC fan if you're a Galaxy fan coming up on October 2nd.
It's really unfortunate, but yes, these are the facts.
Portland will host LAFC. This game is on ABC and ESPN Deportes. It is a game that you're going to watch, especially if the LA Galaxy get a draw into this game. And so it's one of those games you want to watch to see the Galaxy move up, stay away from. You want Portland to lose that game. You want LAFC to take points from that game. So that's something to watch. Kansas City and Seattle. Kansas City fans, you're going to want to pull points away from Seattle on that. And then Nashville and Houston, and you want Houston to win that game for sure because you're trying to pull Nashville back towards you as much as you possibly can. Did I get all that right?
I think so. I think the one wrinkle, if you're a true hater like I am, Portland LAFC, you're hoping for a draw because then your LAFC is not getting the points for the Supporters Shield, and a draw, that's not going to really help Portland catch you. So I think that's the one wrinkle that I'd throw in there.
I want everybody as far away from the LA Galaxy as possible. Like, do you understand? I want pure separation. You're not going to catch LAFC.
I feel good. But if we know on Saturday, then it
doesn't
change
matter
who we root for. Yeah,
it's all about seeding too, right? I mean, and that whole sort of thing comes to it. If the LA Galaxy win, go to 49 points, right? If Nashville doesn't get it, now all of a sudden you're in 4th place and you're only 1 spot behind Dallas. And if Dallas doesn't win, now you have a chance for 3rd. I mean, all these things start to cascade, and so again, there's going to be a lot of scoreboard watching here over the next weekend. So enjoy that part of it. I really think that's an important part of all of these playoffs and everything that's sort of going. So that's the schedule that we have. I think we showed you sort of the standings and where everybody sort of sits right now. So do you want to talk about RSL?
I think so. Yeah, we've only been talking for an hour, and there's a game coming up this weekend. So let's get to it.
All right. The LA Galaxy versus Real Salt Lake is coming up at Dignity Health Sports Park. It's an October 1st game, the very first game of October. I would like to remind you, if you go back and look at the chart, that the LA Galaxy are very good in first games of the month. All right, so there's a good sign here. That loss doesn't count. The Galaxy played that Leagues Cup game.
Yeah, I was going to say that was the real first game of the month.
That was the real first game of the month. So we will bend that rule to make it look better for you all. But the LA Galaxy playing on RSL, the game on Spectrum Sportsnet, LAGalaxy.com. 7:30 p.m. is your TV start time. 7:38 p.m. is your kickoff time. All right, so nothing major, nothing surprising. There's nothing in this that you need to worry about. LA Galaxy with 23 wins, 12 draws, and 19 losses against Real Salt Lake overall. If you look back, though, RSL has won the last 2 games.
Yep.
Which is something to sort of pay attention to a little bit. Let's see. I wanted to bring this one up. I thought this was interesting. It says Real Salt Lake has won consecutive matches against the Galaxy following a pair of home wins in September 2021 and April 2022. This is only the 3rd time RSL has won consecutive matches against the Galaxy, including playoffs, never doing so in 3 consecutive meetings. There you go.
Don't say that out loud.
No, yeah, that's good.
And then read the one 2 over.
2 over. Real Salt Lake has just 1 point from its last 4 matches, losing both road matches in that span by combined 5-0 score. RSL's only win in its 8 road matches since the start of June was a 2-1 victory at Seattle on August 14th.
So
Draw
one
2
win
losses.
in 8 road matches. Yeah.
And
And then they've never beat us 3 times in a row. So I'm just saying. Yeah.
I mean,
Something had to give with the Colorado game. It finally went the other direction, but you don't want it to go the other direction here.
No, I don't think you do. The bottom line is RSL has been plagued with injuries, and they have not been a good team for the last 16 games. As we sort of said, 3 wins in their last 16 games. This is a team that I didn't expect much from, because Pablo Mastroeni tends to be a guy who does really well in like his first year and then loses
to save
teams.
his job. Yeah.
And then loses teams as they go into like the second year. And I thought maybe that wasn't true, because certainly if you look at RSL start, that wasn't true. And they were a good team and they were playing well and they had some, some pretty good results, and they beat the LA Galaxy, the 1-0 game, right? And that was April 30th, I believe, is the last time these two teams played. So it's been a while. So for me, I was sort of saying, is Pablo going to get this one right? And it felt like it was going that way. But with the injuries they have and with their inability to really control the midfield or score goals now, they have been struggling mightily. And this is the game the LA Galaxy get to sort of look at and pick off, right? I mean, Eric, if it wasn't Fan Appreciation Day, you would be saying this is a lock, right?
Yeah, that's one of those things where, again, I'm all about not to be disrespectful, but I'm going to be disrespectful. But like Sergio Cordova and Jefferson Savarino, those are the players who are coming in to slay you. I don't know that I'm too scared of that. Justin Miriam has been the thorn in the Galaxy side in the past, so that's someone who does worry me. But you just look at this roster, and the ghost of Bobby Wood is on this team, and just one of those things. Like I don't know that this team scares me. That's what I was saying when I was looking at the playoff possibility bracket on who they end up with. The Galaxy, absolutely, with the way they've been playing and the roster that they have and the players that they have, they should easily be able to put away RSL. But we've said that many times earlier this season, so you have to be very careful when you say that. So going in with the right mentality, that's the one thing that scares me, because the Galaxy riding high, winning an away rivalry, getting the clown celebration, kind of they're feeling themselves right now.
Right.
And that's where they switch off. They're not bouncing back after a loss with something to prove. So that's the one wrinkle that makes me nervous. But as far as, you have Riqui Puig, you have Chicharito who's scoring goals. I think this is absolutely a game that the Galaxy, should take points off. And I do see them winning. I just don't think RSL does have a lot to play for. They're basically fighting for their lives. But I think the LA Galaxy they don't want to wait till decision day. They want to knock it out now. I think the team is gonna come out and dominate and play well, and I think you'll see that. And again, another thing that might make you nervous: you're not going to see the Galaxy play counterattack. You're going to see them try to possess and then break down, and you'll likely see RSL play in the low block and hope for a counter. But I think you're going to see the Galaxy with a lot of possession, and I think they're going to be able to break them down and get the goals, because the RSL is just haven't had it. When the Galaxy were on their slumping streak, I said they haven't shown me that they're playing well. So until they show me different, I'm going to expect them to lose and to not play well. And I'm going to apply that same here with RSL. RSL has not been playing well. I'm not going to expect them to magically have a banger of a game against the Galaxy. I expect the Galaxy to put them away.
Yeah, 4-3-3, by the way. We expect everybody's back, so full complement of anybody that Greg Vanney chooses from. I expect Douglas Costa will start in that 4-3-3. You'll have Grant Sura on one side, Costa on the other side, Chicharito up top. The 3 in the midfield you'd expect with Brugman, Puig, and Delgado. And then the back line, there's some choices to be made, but I expect it's Raheem Edwards on one side, Julian Araujo on the other side, and then a mix and match of whatever you'd like. I wouldn't be surprised if Greg Vanney goes with somebody like Sega Coulibaly and Martin Caceres in there for this, and Caceres should be back and ready to play and all those things. So I don't think that there's going to be any question sort of the starting lineup. I actually think it's fairly simple, fairly forward. And Eric, if we were looking at this, we would say, hey, this is a game the Galaxy absolutely should win. They're riding high. RSL is down low. But there is a twist in this, and it's a twist that LA Galaxy fans of recent, I should say recent, know very well. It's Fan Appreciation Day. The LA Galaxy have not had a great record on Fan Appreciation Day. But wait a minute, hold the presses. In the history of Fan Appreciation Day, we have to define this first, okay? Fan Appreciation Day They were certainly calling it that, I think, all the way back into 2013. The last home game is always Fan Appreciation Day. So if we take that through the entire 26 seasons that the LA Galaxy have played before this, right, we can take the last home game and call it Fan Appreciation Day. Okay, even if maybe that wasn't named that and the whole deal. I'm not going to go back and research.
The final farewell to their fans. Yeah.
Right. The final home game. Now, sometimes the final home game comes like 3 games before the end of the season. Sometimes it comes on the last game of the season. This year, there is an away game after this. So I did 2 things. Is I tracked the LA Galaxy's final home game of every single season, and I tracked the LA Galaxy's final away game of every season, so that way we could get an idea of what you're looking at in Houston, right? Because that's we're trying to figure this out. So if I told you the Galaxy were overwhelmingly successful on Fan Appreciation Day, would you be surprised?
I wouldn't be surprised because they've been overwhelmingly successful for the majority of their time in the league. But in recent years, it's not the case. Just like in recent years, not making the playoffs. So I wouldn't be totally shocked.
Yeah. So here
I know that's not good pod, but
yeah, thanks.
Show us
thanks.
the numbers.
You ruined it. You ruined it.
Yes, actually, I would be terribly surprised to find out that they had 14 wins total.
Yes,
and
14 wins, 5 losses, 7 draws on the last home game, which we're calling Fan Appreciation Day. 14 wins. Now, since 2013, which is a nice round number and a good place to sort of start, the LA Galaxy have 1 win, 3 losses, and 5 draws. Okay, so
that's the LA Galaxy.
That's the Fan Appreciation Day,
yeah.
Right?
And
now,
I think the worst one being where the Galaxy got eliminated by Houston, and then the Dodgers went on to lose the World Series on the same day. That was a rough day. That was not a good day.
Yeah, it's not where you want to be.
No.
Now, when we look at the last game, so whenever you go to Houston, the last away game, the LA Galaxy over their entire history are 8, 12, and 6. So again, not great. Sometimes you can chalk that up to already being in the playoffs and not caring what that game is, right? That was certainly that way with the Bruce Arena years, but that hasn't been the case recently for the LA Galaxy. So anyway, just wanted to point that out. So Fan Appreciation Day, 14, 5, and 7 overall, but since 2013, 1, 3, and 5. That 1 win, Eric, coming in 2017, by the way, the worst season the LA Galaxy had, and were surely eliminated by then.
There was
right?
nothing to play for.
There was nothing to play for. So that was the wooden spoon year. So that's the Fan Appreciation Day. Now, I should warn and remind everybody, you will want to get to this game early.
Correct.
This game, and the LA Galaxy already put out an advisory on it. They said basically advisory, it's going to be busy, it's going to be packed. You're probably going to want to get there early. Now, that also means the LA Galaxy are approaching a sellout. That's usually whenever they put those advisories out there. So I wouldn't be surprised if it sells out. And it should be a pretty raucous crowd, I would imagine. The playoffs already started. If you watched any of the Seattle-Cincinnati game on Tuesday night, which I think we were texting back and forth and doing stuff, the playoffs have already started if you're paying attention to sort of what's going on in these games. And so the Galaxy have been playing that well, and I would expect that this RSL game, absolutely fighting for their life. They have like a 34% chance of making the playoffs right now.
They're the lowest on the I think I was going to say Seattle might be lower than them. Yes, Seattle's slightly lower than them.
Right.
But they're Seattle. I don't know that I'll call Seattle out, but yeah, you're right about, and I'll mention that too, why we're mentioning the other games. If you're a sicko and you like MLS outside of the LA Galaxy, that's why you want to keep an eye on these games also, because these teams have a lot to play for, and you see it with Cincinnati. They just couldn't. Cincinnati had all the chances in the world and just couldn't bury Seattle. They just let Seattle hang on, by
Pat
a thread.
Noonan is like banging his head against the bench still. They had so many sitters to put Seattle away and didn't do it. They ended up in a draw, which sort of the Seattle broadcasters were even like, that's probably not enough to get Seattle into the playoffs. They're on the outside.
From an LA Galaxy perspective, that draw now allows where the Seattle cannot overtake the LA Galaxy if the Galaxy get any result out of these last 2 games.
Right, and so that's what the Seattle's looking for, a lose-lose out of the Galaxy in order to jump up there and get into it, and so are other teams as well. I would like to put out 2 things. I'll clarify 2 things. One is that the all parking gates are going to open at 3:30, 5:30 p.m. All stadium gates open at 6 p.m. That's all stadium parking gates, by the way, I should point out, because they always... are they really saying all stadium gates are going to open at 5:30 and they're going to open at the same time as media gates? That doesn't make any sense. It is not
I was going
right.
to say, have you been to an LA Galaxy? When have all the gates opened at the same time? Yeah.
It should be 6 p.m. for the all stadium gates, but I'll just,
maybe it is
early. maybe they're opening it at the same time. It's fine. I don't really care. I'm just saying usually the media has about a half an hour head start to get into the stadium and do all that stuff. So that'll happen. I've also seen a lot of people, and I actually asked, there is no boxing going on this weekend. All right. Boxing's not happening this weekend. It's happening next weekend.
Well, depending on how much you drink at the tailgate, there may or may not be. Yeah.
I understand what you're saying, but the actual event at Dignity Health Sports Park, and they were selling a ticket package that was like boxing and soccer, and it was for next weekend for the boxing. So no boxing going on, which last time there was boxing and a soccer game at the stadium was a bit of a nightmare. Was a bit of a cluster. It wasn't good. And so that's not happening this weekend. So no boxing going on this weekend. I asked specifically today whether or not that was happening, and they told me no, it's next weekend. So that's everything I think we have, but I do want to get to 538.
Well, because before you get there, I will just shout out the Galaxy also for the Fan Appreciation Day. I know when I went to the FC Dallas game, I talked about lightsabers, and they had like a light show and a drone show, and Galaxy fans were like, man, our FO doesn't care about us, doesn't do those things. They are giving out LED wristbands, which I imagine will be like a light show situation, which from my experience at the Dallas game, it was really cool. So, laugh at it all you want with the light up wristbands, but in that atmosphere, if you've been to a concert where they give out light up wristbands, it really creates a great atmosphere and a very cool environment. So I think that's cool that they're doing that. And then just all the little extra, Quasar cuts and all those different things. Fan Appreciation Day is a fun day. It's meant to be a fun day. It just hasn't been fun recently, but I do want to shout out the LA Galaxy for kind of having those extras and trying to make it a special day for the fans out there.
You talked about the LED wristband. The prize patrol will have, and I quote, a plethora of in-game surprises for guests all night. That's word points. Plethora always gets word points.
Would you say soccer, a plethora of
soccer? Yep. Soccer Fest with the Quasar cuts. You got it. The LA Galaxy Foundation is bringing back the jersey off the back auction for Fan Appreciation Night. Merchandise, locally grown, globally known. So there's a lot of things going on. And again, a limited number of tickets still remain. I would imagine that it probably sells out, especially on a Saturday night. And with the weather almost being nice, it's really trying this week to be nice. So we'll see whether or not that works. Yes.
Out in my area, we hit a cold front. We're in the high 80s now. So
you're going to have to put on a sweater.
Yeah, it's cold over here.
Yeah, I can imagine. So let's take a look across the entire league as we do, and let's look at that game, Eric. LA Galaxy versus Real Salt Lake, 538. You want to tell the fine people what the 538 has to say?
Yeah, so the Galaxy are heavy favorites here. The LA Galaxy have a 49% chance of winning, according to 538. Real Salt Lake with a 26% chance of winning, and then a 25% chance for a draw. So I always like to look at the slate. Where do they land? It's the fifth highest, which actually makes me feel more comfortable. It doesn't jump out as being like they have the best odds, but the disparity between the Galaxy and Real Salt Lake is one of the larger ones. The 49% to 26%. And then if you go to Bovada, Galaxy at minus 135 and Real Salt Lake at plus 350. So the Galaxy really are heavy favorites, expected to win this game, and I expect them to win it as well.
Give me your predictions guaranteed to be wrong. Although, again, I got my prediction right last weekend.
I was going to say we've been on a bit of a hot streak. These guaranteed to be wrong predictions haven't really been that wrong. So I'm going to hope that we keep with the trend here. I'm still going to call it guaranteed to be wrong, but I think 3-1 win. I see a lot of people with similar response. I think they can't get through this game without letting in a goal, but I think the goals still come. I think Chicha breaks his LA Galaxy record. I think Dayon finally gets back his little bit of his mojo to get hot at the right time, and Gaston's feeling himself. I think he gets another banger, another shades of Jonathan Dos Santos, bangers only. So I think the Galaxy win 3-1.
Oh, that was going to be my prediction. 3-1.
Yeah, I think that's I saw it in the chat pop up a bunch of times. Yeah, I think that's fair. We've been watching this team. I think we're pretty confident saying that's what it should be, and then it's all going to go to hell because it's Fan Appreciation Day.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's what we all expect to have happen. All right. Yeah, I'm 3-1. I think the Galaxy should dominate. I expect to see sort of the dominant performance that you saw against San Jose in the first, 60 minutes or something like that really lays it out. Win the first half, win it comfortably, get into the second half, and put the game away, right? Don't make this one of those things where you let somebody back in. 2 goals is not enough. 3 goals is where it sits. And 3 goals puts you comfortably through, so that way you can start thinking about Houston and what you're going to do with Houston. Bottom line is Galaxy win this game and they clinch a playoff spot, and we can all say that the Galaxy are now playoff team, and you can start sort of arranging your schedule, although we won't know exactly where the seeding lands until the end of the Houston game, so it'll all be there. But yeah, I think the Galaxy win. I think they win comfortably. I don't don't know that I know there's going to be moments where RSL fights, and I know that they're going to be in dangerous moments, and I think it's how how the Galaxy handle those moments. And as long as they handle them the way I expect them to, I expect the Galaxy to be pretty comfortable against RSL. I do not think that there's anybody who can sort of keep the Galaxy in bay in the central midfield. So
makes me nervous. We're feeling good. Chad's feeling good.
Yeah.
We know where this is going. So
There's way too much positivity.
Come on, prove us wrong. Prove us wrong, LA Galaxy.
Douglas Costa red card in the 5th minute. Is that where we're going? Douglas Costa red card in the 5th minute. That's like just started off.
I think he's going to get he has a Quasar cut scheduled. So make sure that's after the game.
I looked up the disciplinary, and it hasn't updated since the 22nd. But I believe it is still correct that basically the LA Galaxy have Chase Gasper and Julian Araujo as the only people who are on yellow card watch. Julian has been on yellow card watch forever.
See, it's interesting how it's still on yellow card watch. Is there a certain number of games? Do you know the number?
It's supposed to be 5, but you only get that once, right? And then you can. So I don't know. He may have already had it forgiven, and now it's just going to sit there and sort of do that.
I think you have a stat, and I don't know if you've shared it yet, where Julian is looking to hit a certain number of games, right?
100.
100.
Yeah.
So if he
so he could have 100 appearances for the LA Galaxy if he hits every single game in the regular season. That's all regular season appearances.
Yeah.
So he could hit 100. And if like some people, you don't expect him to come back next year, then what is he going to be stuck on, like 98 or 99? You know, he's going to be stuck on 99, and that would be unfortunate, the whole deal. So that's where we sit. LA Galaxy versus Real Salt Lake coming up on Saturday. Again, game is at 7:30 p.m. and kicks off at 7:38 p.m. Spectrum Sportsnet, LAGalaxy.com. Nikki K, Joe, and Kobe all on the call for you on a wonderful October 1st. Hope everybody is enjoying now getting into fall when it's still however 90 degrees it was today or whatever it was. But you're getting there. And the season wraps up, again, very, very, very shortly. This is not a normal year. You're not going to stretch this out. The LA Galaxy will play on, 10-9. That is it. 10-9 is decision day. It is the day that everybody kicks off at the same time. And you're going to see how everything sort of shakes out across the entire league. There's still a lot to be played here in these last 2 games for everybody. So I'm actually pretty pumped about it. It's kind of a fun time of year. And as soon as that cold breeze starts blowing a little bit, you're going to be like, it's Mike McGee time. Yeah. All right. And so maybe Kevin Cabral is the next Mike McGee. Maybe he's going to turn it on whenever the playoffs hit. And that's the thing, right? I've
seen it said Pando Ramirez, nothing all season. And then in a final magically gets that game winner. I think, we could only hope, we can only dream. That's where we're going. So yeah, come on, LA Galaxy. We're due. We're overdue on Fan Appreciation Day. Have fun out there, fans. Let's enjoy ourselves. Let's get the win, and let's not worry about decision day. That'd be nice. That'd be a real nice luxury.
Already
to go into
in the
decision
playoffs.
Day, not worrying about it, not sweating.
Already they're totally going to screw this up. I don't know how, but it's just
all signs are pointing there. We're too happy. I don't like it.
Yeah, it shouldn't work. Eric, tell people where they can find you.
All right. As always, you can find me on Twitter at HammerEV. You could also follow me on Instagram at Galaxy Profile. That's Galaxy PROFOUL.
All right, if you're looking for me on Twitter, it's at JGuesman, JGUESMAN, and of course at Galaxy Podcast. Head on over to cornerthegalaxy.com for all of our shows, all of our videos. We have the press conference up there today with Chicharito and Greg Vanny that you're going to want to catch. And Chicharito talks about him coming back for another year. So going to catch that for sure. LA Galaxy, RSL, Saturday, October 1st, 7:30 p.m. All right, for Eric, the Portuguese Hammer Vieira, I'm Josh Pato Guesman. You've been listening. You've been watching to our little Corner of the Galaxy. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo. And on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.